I've held off on doing this video for a while now because I didn't want the thumbnail or title to spoil what happens in the main story. But I think an appropriate amount of time has passed, but just to be safe, expect some spoilers for Penacony's main story in this video. By the end of the main story, we see something unexpected happen to both Firefly and Robin, and under normal circumstances, I wouldn't really be asking this question. But given what happened to them happened in Penacony, and more specifically the dream world, it begs the question, are they really dead? So in this video, I'm going to be discussing both Firefly and Robin's supposed deaths, and try to determine if this is a permanent thing or just a temporary shock. Before we discuss this any further, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, so just some post-edit additions before we get on with the video. While I was working on this video, Star Rail announced drip marketing for Robin, which kinda explains what her current status will eventually be. So just know that I'm aware of the announcement, but it's a bit too late to change this video at this point, so yeah. That said, given she's slated to appear in 2.2, I have included some ideas in the video on how that might happen, given her death took place in 2.0 and her supposed return only happening in 2.2. Plus, half the video talks about Firefly as well, so don't click off just yet. Robin's reveal still leaves some questions open and the video discusses more than just that. Anyways, back to the video. Games like Genshin Impact or Star Rail often try to stay on the feel-good side of things when it comes to its story. Deaths aren't common, and if they are, they're usually either few and far apart or non-permanent. That's why when we landed on Penacony, it wasn't something most of us was expecting. And yet, by the end of the 2.0 story, two characters are now dead, supposedly. The first person shown being killed off is Firefly, who was attacked by the death meme thing. As the main character, Black Swan and Acheron reach Firefly's position within the dreamscape, the death meme appeared out of nowhere and beelined it straight for Firefly and supposedly killed her. She was pierced through the chest, and after a short while, her body dissolved into a pool of unknown liquid, leaving no body behind. Shortly after this incident, Black Swan teleports the main character to Aventurine. He talks to the main character for a bit, trying to convince them they should be allies, and then proceeds to show them something disturbing. Robin, one of the members of the family, is found in her hotel room, also seemingly dead. While we didn't see how she died, her condition shares similar characteristics with Firefly. She has a gaping wound in her chest and her body eventually dissolves into seemingly the same liquid, much like Firefly. The condition in which we found Robin hinted that the death meme was once again responsible given the similarities with Firefly, but we can't be 100% sure. It's also a bit suspicious that Aventurine happened to know about this. I mean, how did he even find her? But that's a whole other thing. Now, what makes these deaths really interesting is that instead of happening in the real world, they happen in the dreamscape, which made me kinda curious. What actually happens to you when you die in a dream? The straightforward answer, and likely the easiest to refute, is that you die permanently in reality. Maybe this is a Sword Art Online thing, where dying in the dreamscape also causes your main body to die as well. The reason why I say this is the easiest to refute is purely because these are main characters, or rather characters that seem important to the story. It's unlikely both of them are permanently killed off this early on, and it might have been done more for shock value, but there is still that possibility. There's also a chance that there is something unique about Robin and Firefly that are outside of the norm, which makes their death not entirely permanent, but I'll talk about that a bit later in the video. The second guess I have is that when you die in the dreamscape, all that happens is that you wake up. The death you experience while in a dream is not a permanent one, and you just end up back in your own body in the hotel room. At the start of the Penacony story, when we first meet Acheron, it seems this is exactly what happens. When our conversation with her ends, an unseen attack, likely from Acheron since she's the only one there, hits the Trailblazer and the same goopy fluid is seen to be released. Shortly after this, the Trailblazer wakes up back in the Astral Express completely unaffected. Now, there are some slight differences here. Acheron and the main character was said to have been in some in-between place and not specifically the dreamscape controlled by the family. I mean, this could end up being the same place as the family's dreamscape, but if not, then different rules might have applied. Secondly, we didn't really see the main character dissolve despite seeing the goopy fluid which both Robin and Firefly also experienced after they were attacked. So again, this could be two different circumstances. Nevertheless, if this was the case, then both Robin and Firefly are likely alive and just sitting in their rooms. While this could be a possibility given this scenario means they didn't really die, it doesn't match up with the conversation Sunday has with Sparkle. During that conversation, Sunday is pretty cryptic about these incidents. He mentions that death, in quotation marks, has descended on Penacony, referring directly to both Firefly and Robin, but then mentions that they are akin to spiritual deaths. This makes me think their deaths might not be permanent, but on the other hand, Sparkle then says that Robin is considered a goner and offers to take her place, or at least pretend to be her so that the world doesn't know the Charmony festival cannot continue. Why would she need to offer that if Robin didn't actually die? It's a bit confusing because Sunday talks about it as not being a permanent thing, but acts as though his sister has really died. So the possibility of them having just woken up in their rooms does not seem to be likely given what Sparkle offers Sunday here. There is one other outcome though that might fit into the narrative so far. Perhaps when one dies in the dreamscape, they do end up back in their physical bodies, with the difference being that they end up in a comatose state or something. A condition that causes them to functionally be unconscious and prevents them from acting. This might fit in with whatever is currently going on. Robin and Firefly, being main characters, are still technically alive but functionally can't act. This way, the offer Sparkle proposes to Sunday makes sense since Robin can't perform anymore, but it still keeps them alive to be summonable or used in the story later, which, come on, even without leaks we know is going to happen. It also may fit in with Sunday's spiritual comment, with the death of an individual in the dreamscape referring to more of a death of their consciousness or something. There might also be some time limit associated with this condition, maybe like deep sea divers having to depressurize after forcefully being taken out. Now earlier, I alluded to the possibility of yet another outcome. What I was referring to is what exactly would happen if you didn't have a physical body or form. I mean, characters like that do exist, such as Black Swan, who is a mimetic entity, or perhaps maybe an AI. If these types of outliers were to die in the dreamscape and have no physical body to return to, what exactly would happen? In this scenario, I was mostly referring to Firefly, as there have been a few theories about her and who she really is, one of which is that she might be a sentient AI, as it's hinted that she could be Titania from Glamoth. There's also the possibility of her not having a physical body, but only an uploaded consciousness, given she brought up the entropy disease, and from side quests, we know this is possible because of Chadwick. I've spoken about this in a few other videos, but essentially, if Firefly really is an AI or does not have a physical form, perhaps her death wouldn't affect her as much as someone who has a physical body. Maybe she's a special case and dying in the dreamscape won't affect her at all. Obviously, her background hasn't really been confirmed, though I somewhat suspect that she's going to have a role to play in the upcoming story in 2.1, and this might be one way she is able to return to the setting while Robin is functionally comatose and cannot. Now, there's other possibilities here as well. Maybe the death that the meme causes is a special case and is different from a typical death you would experience in the dreamscape. I happen to recall in Sparkle and Black Swan's companion quest, an IPC tourist was targeted for a hit, and when someone tried to kill them, nothing significant happened. So there's quite a few things at play here. There might be something unique to either Firefly and Robin, or perhaps the death the meme causes functions differently from a typical death. Given what we know right now though, I don't think that these deaths are permanent and more likely just temporary given who these characters are, and as I've explained, there exist possibilities where they could come back. I mean, there have been deaths in Star Rail like Ting Yun and Dan Shu, but it would be rather odd to introduce these characters and have them be killed off so early. I'm pretty sure some of you would be up in arms if this is the last we see of either of them, so I doubt the deaths are permanent, but there might be permanent repercussions to their dream state deaths. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments. Are these two definitely goners, or is this just a misleading death? If you enjoyed watching the video, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.